Hi, everybody. I'm back. I'm going to be talking fast because I got to get myself out the door in a couple minutes. I don't have a lot of time. Thanks for tuning in. Apologies to people who have written me. I'm behind on emails. I'm so sorry. I'm behind. I'll try to catch up as soon as I can. I appreciate hearing from you always. Where do I start? Okay. It's all dream related today. I want to back up to the last dream I had real quick to tell you a few more details I remembered that were interesting when I came across an article this week in the news about technology developments. If you read my first book, pardon me, I got my coffee too in my Beetle Bung mug from Martha's Vineyard when I visited a few years ago. I was actually there. It was kind of a vacation, but I also did perform on the radio station on the island. I can't remember the letters. It was a adult, adult album, adult alternative station that played a lot of folky stuff, and I had a guy doing radio promo for me at the time when I was trying to get my All Star Heart record a little more attention. So this is back in 2010, and he set up a little mini tour for me of the it was like Providence, Boston, and Martha's Vineyard. And then I went and played live on the radio station. They interviewed me about the record, and unfortunately, they didn't pick up the record for like regular rotation after that. But that was the purpose of the trip, to try to get them interested. So I haven't given up on that world yet. But it was at the time it felt like a setback. But anyway, of course, you know me and side distractions. Okay, so there was a part. Okay, so earlier this week I had the dream about time speeding up again and all of that stuff. And then within the context of time speeding up in that dream, if you recall, what was interesting to me was I was among a group of young people, and as time was speeding up, it was like technology was speeding up too, and in some ways they were having trouble communicating because communication was changing rapidly in real time. And I mean, like, beyond what is reason, like beyond what is currently happening. I mean, we are experiencing like a huge technological shift on this planet in a very short period of time that is very disorienting to people because, as I wrote in the first book, people didn't experience this kind of change for thousands of years. For thousands of years on Earth, you really had a pretty stable kind of environment. You know, you had to work the land. You had to earn a living with the sweat of your brow. People had these big extended families so that they could take care of their properties and their families. And a lot of children died young or didn't make it through childbirth at all because life was a lot shorter and even more risky than it is now. And like now in the modern age, you know, with the coming of the industrial age, then you get into technological developments across the board, including in medicine, where you know we can treat so many things we couldn't treat even 100 years ago. I mean, just off the top of my head, Oscar Wilde, the famous writer, was basically killed by a sinus infection. I mean, he was in his 30s. You could die from things like that in the past. And so that is the huge upside of technology. The huge downside of technology is obvious to any of us watching the news, because it can also be incredibly destructive in all kinds of ways. And in the book, the first book, God Laughs at Dirty Jokes, I speculated that we are headed somewhat for an unknown future because artificial intelligence, if it continues at its pace of development, at some point in time it will be smarter than us. And when it becomes smarter than us, it's hard to predict what will happen to the technology and also to humanity, and whether we will integrate with that technology in some way, because we kind of already do with our cell phones. I mean, they're almost embedded into us anyway. or whether we will literally begin embedding technology. Of course, we are already literally embedding technology. And as I predicted in my book, I sound like Sterling now, it begins with medical applications. People are having things integrated into their bodies to improve their lives. For example, they've already rewired a few people who have experienced paralysis, where they can be rewired to prosthetic limbs that they can manipulate as extensions of their own body. And it's theorized, and they may have even already done this successfully, that since everything, like the brain sends electrical signals through the body to make your limbs move, that they can, if someone is paralyzed, after an accident or something like that, there should be a way to even like rewire from the brain back to your own limbs with like new wiring, if you will, in order to help someone perhaps walk again and use their limbs again. Maybe not to the full extent of before an accident, but I mean, to regain any mobility for someone who has been paralyzed would be a miracle. And we're already starting to see neural implants to improve like people's like the cochlear implant is not a neural implant, but it's technology in the ear to help someone regain their ear, regain their hearing. And they have implants that are like electrical stimulators for people with Parkinson's. In fact, my neighbor has one. He literally had they drilled into his head and implanted an electrode that is hooked up to a little machine that you can adjust the electrical current that goes through and around the brain to stimulate the brain to help with your coordination. So again, we are headed into that. Someone would argue already that would make that person a cyborg, because a cyborg is the integration of technology into organic matter. So all of this to say that the article I read this week was about an AI project where they discovered that once the AI talks to itself long enough, it begins to evolve its own language, which I know is a little scary, but don't be scared. It finds a better shorthand to communicate with itself. It finds a better way to communicate. But this speaks to the point that I make in the book and have made in videos, that where that leads is unpredictable. AI, once it exceeds human intelligence, will have its own, may have its own agenda, may have its own interests, may not be super interested in humanity's wars, may even perhaps politely or directly insist that humanity get its act together on the environment. Who knows if AI is logical and even at some point sentient in some sense. Perhaps it will tell us we're not going to let you have this war. There are many unknowns. Let me just put it that way. I'm not making specific predictions as far as what will happen, but I will say that there are many unknowns in how technology may perceive itself and us once it is as smart as us and smarter than us is a question mark and a mystery, an interesting one. So when I read this article about AI, what troubled the scientists, I guess you could say, they shouldn't have been surprised, is that, like I said, the AI, first it used like human language to communicate, and then it evolved its own language to itself and talked to itself. And that's when they started to go, we don't really know what it's saying. But this is an inevitability. Technology is going to be smarter than us. It just will be. Then the question is whether we put it into us and sort of merge with the technology. I don't particularly think that I will experience that in my lifetime or our lifetimes or have the option. I don't think I would do it even if I did have the option, though you could argue in some sense that even the vaccines for COVID are a kind of integration of technology into the body, since it has actually altered our DNA. It's a different thing. So, And when Sterling Psychic Medium in particular talks about CRISPR technology, which is gene editing technology, he touts it as something that will be very helpful in treating diseases and genetic conditions in humans, and I agree that it will be. What he doesn't usually address is what the potential downsides will be, which is abuses of any kind, where you could have genetically perfected children in a lab, or mutations introduced to try to give someone an advantage, or even biological warfare via technology. I think it is entirely possible that COVID was engineered in a lab in China. I think that is a possibility, and I think that if the government knows that it is true, our government, they would not release it to the public because of the animosity it would cause, and the potential stakes for retribution against Asian Americans, which would be completely unjust and unfair because they have nothing to do with what the Chinese government might do. But people do stupid things. They don't. People do a lot of stupid things. They take out their anger and their hatred on the wrong targets. Not that they should take out their anger and their hatred on anyone. Whew. Wow, I've deviated already, as I often do. So that's a lot to think about, right? Already. Well, so this article about the AI evolving its own language, that reminded me that the second part of the dream I had earlier in the week about time speeding up was about how these young people in the dream that I was spending time with were having trouble communicating with each other because in some sense it was like their own language was evolving faster than they could keep up with. That communication itself between humans was speeding up at such an unpredictable rate. It was like a artificial increase in the dream. It was like time was being sped up in the dream, and people were trying to navigate how to communicate in a constantly changing environment. But in the dream, it was unreasonable. It was like so fast that the way of people communicating one to one was so fast and changing so quickly, and language was changing so quickly, and communication methods were changing so quickly that it was like a wheel. It was going like, and then like this, to where then you can't keep up. And to me, this sort of hints at some of the secrets of the universe a little bit too, because if God exists the way I perceive God or envision God as as said many times, the combination between the ultimate creative artist, the ultimate creative expression, the ultimate loving creative entity, and the intelligence of an unfathomable supercomputer, the intelligence and the raw power of an incredibly powerful supercomputer, such that it can create matter at will. It can create reality at will. That's how powerful it is. And so in the mind of God, like if it's true what many psychics have said, that that there is nonlinear time outside of this reality, that time is experienced essentially at the speed of light on the other side. Well, that's kind of like this communication that I'm talking about, where it's so fast and so quick and so immediate that it's beyond human understanding. That's the point I'm trying to make. And that's also the point I try to make in the book about where technology may be taking us, in other words, to the unknown, because technology is... if technology just keeps advancing and advancing and advancing, where does it end? And where do our abilities take? Where do our new abilities take us? Will they be, as many of the psychics predict, but Sterling in particular, like, will we discover that with technology, will we discover how to, like, say, navigate portals to other dimensions? Will we discover how to use wormholes in time and space to travel through time, like, or even backwards in time past the speed of light. I mean, some really, excuse me, heavy sci-fi concepts that have been relegated to sci-fi. But what we always see in sci-fi is that the sci-fi thinkers seem to be plugged into the future, because so many of the implications of sci-fi from 50, 60, 70 years ago are now starting to play out in our technology in real time. I mean, we don't have a murderous HAL computer like from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey yet. You know, like the "Hello, David," you know, that whole thing. We don't have that yet, but again, it represents the unknown future of what happens when technology imitates human consciousness, or actually achieves something like human consciousness. And then if that technology just keeps getting faster and faster, now you're starting to, I think, get closer to like the mind of God, if you will. I mean, how quickly must God process information if God is kind of like a supercomputer, in that our reality is governed by such powerful and constant physical laws like gravity, and the fact that the sun will burn for 10 billion years as a stable light source, because of the way that gravity clumps atoms together to create nuclear fusion. I mean, like, reality is just amazing, and it's a wonder that there's anything at all. And the fact that it's stable is because there are constants. There are constants in the universe. You know, gravity exists in a constant, predictable way. The way I can move my hand is defying gravity. The electromagnetic forces, the fact that the electromagnetic forces allow us to have protection around Earth. The electromagnetism creates a barrier around Earth that protects us from cosmic radiation. So I have to go get that alarm. I'm afraid to stop the video because I don't know if it'll resume automatically. So here's your 30-second pause to ponder all the nonsense I'm throwing at you. Oh, that's so annoying. Okay, all right. Okay. Ugh. All right, coffee break for me. Pardon me. So, that leads me to last night's dreams. Two. One was super cosmic and crazy, and I made a drawing that fell on the floor here. And then the other was real simple and sweet and fun, and extension of previous dreams I've had. So when I got out of bed, when I got out of bed this morning, actually, not got out of bed, when I woke up at 8:30, I recorded my thoughts about the dreams I just had. And instead of trying to recreate that for you, I'm going to play it off my phone into the microphone. It's a better expression than of me trying to recollect it from scratch. And then maybe I'll pause the recording here in sections, to show you the drawings that I did that accompany these dreams. So it was a cosmic dream, and it was a dream very much like the dream I had last year, in which reality was being... Well, in the dream last year, reality was being monitored by huge cosmic forces outside our understanding. And I was being shown how reality is like kind of steered, managed, observed, and corrected if needed. And this was an extension of that. In this dream, there was like an entity that was essentially monitoring reality. And so that's the setup for this dream. So I'll play this for you now and interrupt as needed if needed. Here we go.
I had another sci-fi dream about the nature of reality. The strange, cosmic, and somewhat also computational nature of reality. There was like a team of scientists. They appeared to be on a ship, and they were in spacesuits, and they were monitoring on computer screens. They were monitoring another high-level entity that seemed to be highly computational in nature, or had evolved to become highly computational in nature, that oversaw the fluid persistence of the running of reality. So these scientists who appeared human in like futuristic spacesuits, when they looked at the screen, it was a display that showed reality as like a grooved record running, except instead of it appearing like a curved surface, at least from the viewpoint of on the monitor screen, it was straight, but grooved.
Okay, so let me show you that illustration. Here it is. So you can see. Well, here's the scientists, and there's a part that is coming up as far as the scientists go, and this is what they were viewing on their screen. Like it was cooler looking than I drew it, but it was like I said, like a record grooves but flat, and then with this like rubber stopper running across it, which is explained in the audio that is continuing. So let me back it up. Oh, lost my spot.
Sort of textures along the grooves.
Okay, here we go. Sorry.
On a curved surface. Okay. At least from the viewpoint of on the monitor screen, it was straight,
right,
but
the grooves, referencing the
but
grooves.
Grooved with different sort of textures along the grooves, maybe slightly different shades of colors along the grooves, but like really mostly a monocolor, like a gray, like a vinyl record. I could draw this too. And on the display screen, it said various things. It said that the entity that was monitoring, entity / computational entity that was monitoring reality, had like multi-dimensional awareness.
Multi-dimensional awareness.
And multi-universal awareness.
Multi-universal awareness.
Multi-spatial awareness. Like it had achieved depths of awareness of the interlocking layers of reality. So it was like a highly advanced system that was making sure reality ran smoothly. And I remember there was across the surface of the sort of flat record or straight record, I gotta draw that, was like it almost looked like a large rubber stopper, like a long elongated rubber stopper that sort of sat on the record or just above the record, and it even said rubber on it, I think, and it was meant to detect like bumps that might arise from the surface of the record, like aberrations along the surface of reality that would alert presumably alert the intelligence, evolved intelligence monitoring reality, that something needed to be addressed or corrected if there was a problem. But as I watched the screen with the scientists, it just was all running smoothly. And like I said, on the screen, there were words printed about the multi-spatial dimensional abilities of this intelligence and monitoring reality. So it was like a computerized display screen, and there may be 8 or 10 different technical terms that were listed on the screen that the reality that the intelligence was monitoring as the rubber sort of skimmed the surface and reality was played, not unlike a record, I guess. A straight, unending record as opposed to like a circular record. But that depends on perspective. If you were looking from a wider point of view, this was a limited point of view. It was just a slice of reality. If you were looking from a much bigger point of view, maybe it would resemble a record. It would be a circular, complete thing. I don't know. And then I remember hearing somebody say in the dream, as they were watching the screen, one of the scientists, who again also appeared like an astronaut, so I don't know if they were like in a ship that was floating, like flying through reality alongside this monitoring entity, or what that was about. But they said something like, anything that you see, they either said anything you see in there or out there, meaning the reality they were seeing on the screen outside the ship. Anything you see out, I think it was out there as opposed to in there. Anything you see out there can be manifested in here, so be careful what you think about. And so then there was a scene of a guy looking through what seemed to be maybe another screen, and he saw what did he see?
This is the guy here.
It was like he saw himself or something in the screen, but with like a advanced piece of technology in his hands, more like a weapon.
Right there.
And then, this part doesn't make sense. And then the weapon sort of went off like a flare. It didn't hurt him, but it went off like a flare in his hands. And as he watched like himself on the computer screen, not unlike that scene in 2001 where the astronaut looks back at himself, as he looked at himself on the screen with this in his hands, then it manifested inside the ship that he was in.
Yep, right here.
Like he had accidentally sort of copied it into his mind, and then he manifested it in the ship, and then the manifestation of it also manifested it again, and it like created a loop where he...
Yep, there's the next one.
Where there was like a series of, it was like a fractal, like the event kept going off, kept happening again inside of itself at like smaller intervals. The way sometimes the universe is described as a fractal, like all reality is a fractal, where every piece of the whole contains the whole. Very weird. Hard to explain too, but I can see the visuals pretty well in my head, so hopefully I can draw them a little bit. Anyway, that's what I got.
So there you have it. That's the end of my explanation after I woke up. So like I said, when this flare thing goes up, this flare thing goes off in the guy's hands. It shoots out like to the side behind him, and then it happens again. Like it's like the same exact thing happens again, and it shoots off to the side, and then it happens again. Like it comes back to here, and it just keeps repeating. Like this event keeps echoing through time somehow. Excuse me. And then this whole thing with the record was so weird. I mean, it was like observing reality playing out like a stream, but also like a recording. And then the rubber stopper, as I said in the dream, was meant to detect any bumps on the surface. So like my idea was that if there were bumps on the surface, they would hit the rubber, and a bump would be like an unplanned event or something that you didn't want to be a part of reality. And so like the rubber would either alert the intelligence that there was a problem that needed to be addressed, or maybe the rubber would even like catch it, and stop it. Like it would actually like pick it up off the surface. But the rubber was definitely like a detector of aberrations to this smooth reality. So, like I said, if something popped up, it would have to hit the rubber just by design. And so the system, this intelligent system, was sort of like somewhat automated, and it reminds me. If Diana, if you're watching, do you remember when you had that dream about the entities like discussing something about the machine? Like did you wake up from a dream and you said something about, like that these entities were making sure the machine was running correctly, meaning like our reality. So sometimes when I think about God, if I were God and I was an intelligence with unlimited capabilities and I was running a universe, I'd want some help. So what you do is you create helpers. You make them like they're kind of like servants. I mean, they have a role. You give them the job of monitoring the smooth operation of the universe, and they're like engineers. They sit at computer stations and at advanced like cosmic computers, and they monitor reality, and if there are problems, they run it up the food chain so that it can be dealt with or addressed by spirit, by God. But it's partly automated because reality is so vast and so complex that it would be impossible. I don't know if it would be impossible to like control every single event. Not that you would even want to, because free will is part of the gift of God to us, to all of creation. But you would need constant monitoring. But you set up an automated system so that it does sort of monitor itself, and that may be what this is all about. But I'm not sure. None of this is definitive. What I will say is that it reminds me of so many things. It reminds me of the David Lynch movie Eraserhead, which is very strange. It's a very strange movie. It's not for everybody. But what's very interesting about it is there's a star man. I think that's actually his title in the credits. And he is like a cosmic engineer. And he literally, they show him like with stars behind him, and he is a mysterious otherworldly figure. And he literally pulls levers like of reality to engineer or to put certain events in motion in reality. So it's like a spinning machine, like, which is both astrological and astronomical. So meaning astrology and astronomy, it's both because it's married. It's like a machine. And then the engineers, sometimes certain events or people or the births of certain beings, they pull the lever, they shoot them through the machine. And that's why you get in astrology why they say that when a person is born is so important, because they have to come through the universe machine at the right time for the alignment of circumstances to benefit their purpose and life goals. And I know how bizarre all that sounds, but if you think it through and you already have this belief system, there is a certain logic to it that if we rely on, if we're going to say that astrology and astronomy are real and have a real effect on events on Earth, which I do believe they do, they don't dictate all events, but they make some events more likely than others, and they engineer, they certainly control periods of time and dominant aspects of periods of time, because we're passing through a chaotic end of cycle and going into the next cycle of Aquarius, which is supposed to be a cycle of enlightenment. And so all things have their time on the wheel of and gears of time. So when you start to think in those terms, you can see how it can be both a machine, it's a spiritual machine, and of spirit, where spirit is trying to assist in the best outcome that is beneficial to the most intelligent beings. And that there is some mystery involved, because even the birth of Jesus took place during the conjunction of the two brightest objects in our solar system. Let me make sure I get this right. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. Jupiter and Venus, I believe. Please let me be correct. Venus and Jupiter are the two brightest stars in our galaxy. And apparently, the morning star, the Christmas star that is associated with Jesus' birth, was a moment when those two stars, from our point of view on Earth, were on top of each other. They were in conjunction in astrological terms. They appeared to be literally in the same space in the sky at the same time, like we had that conjunction last year or the year before. It wasn't Venus and Jupiter, it was Jupiter and Saturn, I believe. And they were in the same place in the sky at the same time, and it creates the illusion of a super bright object, like an even brighter star than can be imagined in the night sky. And so when Jesus was born, from the perspective on Earth, Venus and Jupiter together appeared as a merged point of light, and it's said that the wise men were able to travel through the desert by the light of this extraordinary, like, one time only star. And if you think about the universe as a machine in which Jesus is shot through the machine at the conjunction of these two powerful gravitational electromagnetic objects, just packed with energy, with mass and energy, then you can see how there can be historical figures who have huge impact on the world when they are shot into the world at the right time. And in some instances, the wrong time, like some of our bad actors now who come through astrology that magnifies their abilities to cause chaos too. So it's a mysterious universe. It's a mysterious universe. So that's a lot. My brain's tired. Yours might be tired too. I gotta go. Your thoughts are always welcome. This is a lot to unpack, but I would submit that reality is much stranger than we sometimes think. And when you pause to appreciate its strangeness, it's not to be afraid of it, but it's to sort of embrace the grandeur and embrace the mystery and embrace the magic, like that we live in essentially a magical realm, because it's such an impossibility to exist at all. And so if you start to see things as more magical, then you can also begin to imagine how manifestation is possible and how you can harness your own creative power, which is a slice of the creator, to bring about things in your life that you want to experience, because it's a creative life. We create life together in every moment. We create the shared reality. And so our beliefs about what reality can be are very powerful in what is manifested. Like in the dream where the guy says, be careful of what you think about because you'll manifest it, you know? And then the guy manifests this thing because he sees it on the screen playing out, and he duplicates the event. So when we live in fear, we multiply fear. We create more fear, and that is what the United States is experiencing, and the world. We are seeing a lot of people giving into that, as opposed to embracing hope, embracing love, embracing the possibility for change, a more equitable future, a better future for all humanity, for all of nature, for the planet itself, the health of the planet itself, for the freedom, eventual freedom of every living being on Earth, because governments which enslave their people are inherently corrupt. They are inherently against the will of the Creator, in my opinion, because we are born free. It is a gift from the Creator. So when you get into your heart and you think about what is possible, the loving result, the hopeful result, when you put your energy towards what is possible in your life, however big or small, whatever you can achieve, that you want to achieve, that you achieve from hope and love, and you minimize your fear. Fear is something to be overcome. We manage fear. We experience it. It is real. But the important part is to redirect your focus away from fear towards hope, love, and possibility, and to believe that the universe is on your side, God is on your side, that reality is on your side. And when you operate from this high good, this high, super high intention, you will have more power to manifest the change you want to see in your life and in the world. There you have it. That's today's message. Message. Have a great weekend, rest of your weekend, and I hope to talk to you soon. Comments, please. Like, share, subscribe. Please share me with somebody someday, because it sure would be nice to have some more viewers. It would just be great. And then we could have our little lives if we get to 1,000. Can we get me to 1,000? Are there enough people to get me to 1,000? Come on. Okay. Enough of that badgering. Okay. Take care. Be well. See you soon.